Meron pa dalawang partido na may guest candidates. How is that possible? Ibig sabihin, walang diferensya between the two groups.
Sana huwag magkaroon ng dayaan itong ilusyon na ito. Para tuwid yung daan. Una sa gawa, una sa unawa. Yan po ang una.
Sa darating na Mayo, muli na namang maharap sa sangandaan ang mga Pilipino. Ang tanong, pipiliin mo bang lumihis ng daan pabalik sa bulok na sistema at balikong kalakalan? Bilang liberal, iisa ang prinsipyong magtitimon sa inyong panunungkulan sa bandila. Bayan bago sarili.
Have you heard anything about platforms?
Pare-pareho pare-pareho lang sila ng platform. Sabihin, more jobs, more food on the table for the poor, health programs, pare-pareho Wala ka makitang difference yan dalawa.
Good evening, you're watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel. I'm Jing Magsaysay. Tonight we're joined by UNA Party spokesperson and Deputy Secretary General Mayor Sherwin Gatchalian and Liberal Party spokesperson Congressman Miro Quimo. Thanks.
Good evening,
You're both running, but you're both spokespersons. Di ba mahirap yun? Miro?
Mahirap, pero kailangan gawin. Alam namin simula't simula pa lang na it would involve, having two roles or two hats. But the campaign of the Team Pinoy is run by a great machinery with smart people. So
Really,
I'm just a small segment in the entire gamut.
Sherwin?
Yeah, mahirap po talaga, no? Especially now that the local campaign started.
Yeah.
But the same po with UNA, even as early as last year, yung organization prepared na at yung mga roles ng each of the individuals nakaayos na. So everything is on schedule naman as we speak.
Conrad De Quiros and Jairus Bondoc were here a few weeks ago. And we were talking about parties, and they were saying, pareho lang naman ang UNA sa LP. People say the same thing, food, jobs. What's the difference? Is there any difference, Miro?
Yeah,
Why is LP different from UNA?
I think Team Pinoy, I represent Team Pinoy, not just LP,
Team
which
Pinoy.
is really an aggregation of three parties.
Yeah.
Now, the observation is valid in a sense that initially when the campaign started, it is very difficult to dichotomize the two parties, principally because people mouth off the same things in an election. But there's a big difference. Biggest difference is the person behind it. And the person behind Team Pinoy is the name itself, the president. And it speaks about what the president's done over the last 3 years and what the president wants to do in the next 3 years. And I think we've been consistent on the positions and as well as the programs that the president feels strongly about. Those are controversial issues, but primarily now it's really on the peace process. It's investing in human capital, the Pantawid Pamilya program or the CCT program. You look at the peace and order as well as the peace process in Mindanao. I mean, essentially those are the things that we're really looking at. And there's also a difference, for us anyway. And we hope that the people see the difference, and we feel like the people are slowly seeing it on the basis of how the surveys are coming out.
Sherwin, how is UNA different?
During time immemorial, for many, many years already, if you look at the surveys, the problems of our country is pretty much the same over the years. Siguro na mag-iiba lang yan in a very, very small percentage.
Okay.
But number one will be really jobs. And job creation is really the biggest problem of this country. In terms of the party, I think the party, each candidate presented their own platform and how to generate jobs.
Yeah.
Of course, UNA has been also consistent in saying that it's a constructive opposition, presenting alternative platforms to help the country. At the end of the day, everyone wants to benefit from good governance, and that's why we're also presenting other forms of solutions to move the country forward.
Specifically for jobs, how do you create jobs? What's the UNA formula for creating jobs?
There's no one single formula, Jing. It's really a multi-pronged approach. One approach really is to strengthen governance, strengthen the institutions, make sure that the country gets the investment that it needs. Of course, all of us should work together to do that. There's no one single solution that if you do this, you create jobs. It's really a multi-pronged solution.
Jobs where? Or what kind of jobs are we looking at? In what sector specifically?
Definitely, agriculture is undervalued in the country. That is the biggest job. Right now, agriculture is the majority of our employment. However, it's not growing. There's also other new sources like the high-tech industries, the BPOs. Those should be also nurtured and grow. But I think agriculture we should invest in agriculture to strengthen that. There's still room for growth because obviously we're not producing enough food for our people. So the growth is there, but we need to protect that industry from smuggling, from importation also.
Miro, jobs.
We often talk about yung tuwid na daan. And that's really been the hallmark of the administration. And people mistake it as simply and dismiss it for being an anti-corruption activity, but in fact it's not. It's way deeper than that. Now, when you say tuwid na daan, it talks about human capital investment. We need to be able to invest in our people in terms of education. We're increasing for the first time, it's unprecedented this year, we're building 68,000 new classrooms, which will practically address 94% of the classroom backlog, which has been there for ages. We're coming up with 22,000 new public school teachers. And, all the funds that are generated to be able to do that, the big question is, how come it's being done now? And, there are two things. First is, an environment has been created where businessmen actually are willing to take risks and invest in government activities like the classroom, the building program, which is a long-term program where businessmen actually take risks over the next 8 years, building it ahead of time and then just getting repaid over the next 8 years. People are emboldened, the businessmen are emboldened to actually get into it because they know that they're going to get paid, walang kalokohan, and at the same time, those who actually the most meritorious proposal will actually be awarded. And it has happened. Previously, hindi nangyayari yun. Pag may ganito kalaking proyekto, talagang pagkakaguluhan o pagpipiestahan, maraming hindi natutuloy. Pangalawa is on human capital investment. Like I said, we need to keep on investing in our people. And, the president feels like that we have so much surplus money now. We're collecting better taxes. We're saving money from infrastructure because there's less corruption. The DPWH saved at least 12% last year from its budget, which now can actually be remobilized into other things. And that's it. If you educate the people better, you prepare them well, you have a better educational system, you're able to prepare them for better skilled jobs. And sanga-sanga, including TESDA, including the investment in schools, in tertiary education, it all emanates from that. And the president feels like, ito yung nagawa sa nakarang 3 taon, we are just at the throes of it. We're just about to make that leap forward. The roadmap is there. Kailangan talaga natin na yung mga kasama sana natin sa Senado are people who understand and will advocate this particular thing. And lastly is that all the candidates, if you look at their track record, have been consistent, at least on a 90% basis, have been consistently supportive of the president's position in the last 3 years.
In an UNA-dominated Senate, Sherwin, will the UNA senators support the existing programs, or do you have better ideas under the UNA three kings, under the former president, the Senate president, and the vice president?
I think everyone will benefit if the program is beneficial to the people. I think UNA will definitely support legislation as well as programs that will help the country move forward. But again, there is no monopoly of ideas and programs. Some of our candidates are very innovative. A lot of them have very extensive track record in public service. A lot of them have worked in both the legislature and executive side. And I think it's beneficial to also the administration to get that side of the of the group, and to listen to that side of the group and to come up with the best strategy for the country.
There are a lot of things that people are looking for. People are looking for solutions for. For example, issues like political dynasties. What's your stand? What's the UNA stand on political dynasties?
Well, ako, Jing, I have a brother who's running for mayor. I'm running for Congress, and our point is basically, like in Valenzuela, everyone's free to campaign. Everyone's free to tell the people what their platforms are, and wala namang kaming tinakot, wala namang kaming inagrabyado. Everyone's free to move around and campaign. And as long as everyone follows the rules of the campaign, I think at the end of the day, it's the people that will choose who they want to be their leaders. I think the same with the national. As long as everyone is free campaigning, campaigning freely, and everyone is following the rules, and I think at the end of the day, the people will choose.
There are dynasties on both sides, Mira.
Yeah, there are. And in fact, there's 3 monarchs on Team Una, with the 3 kings, no?
Parang may
With 3, yeah. And we do too. We have our share of political families. You have Sani Angara.
Right.
You have
a lot.
Magsaysay, who's the son of a former president.
Aquino.
Aquino, you have Bam. But like I said, people often confuse with yung political dynasty. They mistake it for overall, there's a overall dissatisfaction with government and how government has been run over the last century.
People equate it with that dissatisfaction.
And they equate it with that. They felt like that, kaya palpak ang gobyerno, kaya hindi nalalaman ng problema namin, dahil puro sila. Silang magkakapatid, silang mga magbibyenan, etc. And it's partly true, but that's not really the core reason why government has failed for the last so many years. It's not that. It's about corruption. It's about the lack of targets, the lack of accountability. I seriously think that our current laws, even our current constitution today, most democracies, Jing, don't have issues on nepotism or issues on dynasty. It doesn't matter to them. They have members of Congress who've been part of the House of Representatives in the U.S. for 45 years.
Kennedys, for example.
The Kennedys have been there since time immemorial. You have Tip O'Neill, former Speaker of the House, was there for 50 years old? It happens in many democracies. And I think that let's not confuse ourselves with that. I think it's, in my mind, I can say it. Sherwin probably hesitates to say it because there are members of his family who's also in politics. But I can say it because I don't have a dynasty. I'm the first one in my family. I really don't think it's an issue. And I hazard to say that, and I think I have a certain degree of credibility because I don't belong to one. I think for the most part, what it does is people are free to choose. In fact, yung pagkakaroon natin ng mga term limits, yan isang paraan yan. Yung term limit, kaya nagkakaroon ng dynasty. Because instead of you trying to pursue programs, and let's look at Sherwin. We don't belong to the same party, but you cannot dispute what Sherwin has done in Valenzuela and the way it has improved over the last 9 years. For heaven's sake, he should stay as a mayor. I'm sure if he wanted to, there are many other programs that he'd want to, but because of the term limit, you're now forced to give it up, and you're fortunate enough that you have somebody who's there who can at least push the same programs. Because you become jealous. Tagal mo inalagaan eh. May programa ka talaga inalagaan, pawis at dugo, and then somebody's just going to come. So sometimes you have to sire somebody. You convince your wife, you convince your son to, pwede ba pansamantala, hawakan mo muna. Diba? And I think we need to reevaluate that. I think that the dynasties are a byproduct of, in some areas really, of political warlordism. Pero sa akin, tingin ko yung constitutional term limit fosters and engenders yung political dynasties.
Buti lang may mga spokesperson because we don't get the luxury of discussing issues in this election very often. All right, we'll take a short break. News Cafe will return after these reminders. You're still watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel, and we're still joined by the spokespersons of the two leading political parties in this midterm elections, Congressman Miro Kimbo and Mayor Sherwin Gatchalian. Thanks for joining our program, gentlemen. Education. What does UNA think about education, Sherwin?
Well, I think the most contentious issue right now is tertiary education.
Okay.
Tertiary education is becoming a luxury to a lot of our youth, and statistics will say only 30% to 40% of our high school graduates in the public school actually go to tertiary education, and almost 80% to 90% will say those people who can't go, almost 80 to 90% will say that the financial problem is the reason why they cannot go to tertiary education. At this day and age, Jing, it's very important to get tertiary education. That's our only fighting chance, to invest in human capital, like what Miro said. I think it's our position that tertiary education should be available to all. If need to be, we have to increase budget. We have to highly subsidize tertiary education, make it reach down to people who really deserves and who wants to get tertiary education.
Miro?
Yeah, well, I in part agree with that. And in fact, that's the reason why, contrary to the other propaganda, is that tertiary education under the Aquino administration actually increased by 45% in 2013 as against 2012. So there's a distinct recognition that it is important. But one of the aspects that we're also missing is the K+12 program. We have come to accept that not everyone is fit for college. But those who cannot go to college need to be able to find decent work. They need to have enough skills to be able to find work that will pay for their family, a work that they can hang on until they actually retire. So we need to really enrich and improve that. That's why instead of having just a 10-year basic education or 11-year basic education, we need to be able to increase that. That's a trend all over, meaning if we will make high schools vocational or put an aspect a year or so implementing skills from TESDA so that they can be ready for work already. I mean, let's face it, not everybody can work. I mean, like today, or go to college.
Go to college. Yeah.
Today, only 13% of those who start grade 1 eventually reach college. And of those who are in college today, close to 35% of the unemployed are college graduates. So it's never an assurance that you will actually find work. Meaning, you actually studied for something which the market was not, or that job is not there. Or secondly, you finished college, but you're actually not equipped for that particular profession that you wanted. You finished computer engineering, but it was so haphazard, and that diplomas in college are so easy to get now, that eventually your family just wasted resources. So we need to be able to prepare people so that after they graduate high school, kung gusto nila magtrabaho, makakatrabaho na sila. At kaya na nila. At marami kasi sa kanila, hindi talaga kaya. Pero doon sa may intellectual capability, may kapasidad, kailangan natin bigyan ng pagkakataon. Hindi lahat Kasi kung hindi mo talaga kaya, ibig sabihin, unlike today, you have a sprouting of so many state universities and colleges.
Yeah.
Practically, ang dami-daming state universities and colleges na inferior naman yung quality. Many of them are diploma mills. Nagalit sa akin yung mga yan. Pero sa totoo lang, ganun The government, in effect, wastes its money by diluting state subsidy, by giving it to so many. You have one province that has 2 state universities. Dalawa. Bakit? Tinayo ng congressman yung isa, tinayo ng gobernador yung isa. Hindi papayag So, when you have that kind of an environment today, nadadilute, instead of being it concentrated in specialized and highly skilled universities, mas maganda sana. Pero ngayon, kakalat tuloy. So, tingin ko there has to be really a re-engineering in terms of college. That's what the president is going to do.
Team patay, team buhay. Do you think the church is being fair by dividing the candidates into this issue, into 2 sides of this issue? Miro?
It's absolutely unfair. I'm a devout Roman Catholic. I voted in favor of the reproductive health bill. Principally because of I see how it is in the district. I see the lack of knowledge, the lack of attention on women healthcare, which this bill or this law will address. Kalayaan ng simbahan yan kung gusto nilang gawin. Kalayaan yan ng mga iba't ibang archdiocese kung gusto nilang gawin. Ang pakiramdam ko lang, and I support Bishop Sok, is that the church never comes out as a winner whenever it involves itself in politics.
Political issues. Sherwin?
I agree with Miro, no, that it's really unfair. And like me in Valenzuela, no, even without the national legislation, we've been implementing various family planning program and population management programs. No? Very basic lang, Jing. The growth of our population is outpaces our growth in revenues, wherein we can spend for our constituency. The key here is really management. You have to manage your resources, you have to manage your expense, you have to manage your population. And I think it's really unfair for the church to brand, no, those people who supported the reproductive health program, because basic, you know, these people who supported them also knew, were also affected by the poverty in their districts and in their constituencies.
Is this a stand of UNA
Yan,
as well?
yan ang gusto ko. Kaya sabi ko sa'yo, kambing namin to eh.
This is a stand of UNA as well?
I think the Team Patay, Team Buhay crosses different,
Okay.
crosses
Yeah.
two groups.
Yeah.
So I think it's a stand of those people who supported the Arch Bill.
How many senators are going to win from Team Pinoy? 9? 9 ba, Miro?
Well, siyempre gusto namin lahat. Gusto namin lahat dahil ang paniwala ng Team Pinoy, hindi naman ito about individual candidates, but it talks about a message and the entire team.
Right.
Nakita natin sa Senado that when you have a bellicose Senate, or at least a Senate, the President is the last person to be a dictator. As some sectors would say, he wants 12-0 so he can dictate on the Senate, so that it can be a rubber stamp. Sometimes I wonder, pwede mo mandiktahan si Alan Cayetano, si Loren Legarda, si Chis Escudero? Ay parang mas matigas pa ata yung mga yun kaysa sa mga nasa Team Una. No? Ibig sabihin, in terms of paninindigan. But it's important that you look at the syntax, which is a major legislation of the President. It passed through the House of Representatives. We debated on it heavily. We're looking at 32 billion windfall in revenue. When it went to the Senate, akala natin okay na. It just won by 1 vote in this current Senate. And you know, this is a major legislation of the President which will fund PhilHealth over the next 3 years. Muntik nang matalo. Isang boto lang ang nagpanalo. So, na-realize ang Pangulo yun na importante talaga na nandun yung mga tao natin is nakakaintindi, nakikipagdebate, hindi natin nadidiktahan. But when it comes to major legislation, nasisigurado natin na masusuportahan tayo tulad nung ganun.
How many senators, Sherwin, for UNA?
Well,
Do you believe in the surveys?
Personally, I believe in the surveys.
Okay.
No? It's a good indicator. It's a good, numbers will tell you how to move, will tell you how to strategize. But especially for national elections, Jing, it moves, it's very dynamic. Eh.
Right.
It can change
Overnight.
in 1 week and overnight.
Yeah.
So, like Miro, no, we hope for the best. But I think in the next maybe 28 days, there'll be a lot of things that can happen pa.
How's the campaign going?
The campaign is...
How does it feel on the ground? What are people asking for? What are people talking about?
The people in our minds, the reason why we're performing better than when we started. When we started, we were dominated by UNA.
Oh.
And over the last 45 days, it's been a complete reversal. People are impatient for change. People are impatient for the change to actually affect them. All these positive news, gusto nila maramdaman talaga. At mabagal pa yung pagbaba. It really takes time. But what is important that we see below is people are willing to trust the President. When the President says, I'm doing all these good things, you will feel it. Pagtiisan po ninyo, darating ho yan. When he says that, people actually hang on to it. Meaning, because he has the credibility, he has had the track record over the last 3 years, he's been consistent, and that's why his popularity and trust rating is up. And the trust that they repose on the president is now being reflected on the candidates, which is something that we've always wanted. Yung mga top 3 natin, ano yan eh, principally on their own, mananalo yan.
Yeah.
But because they attach to the message of the president, people look at them as instruments of the agenda of the president, tumataas sila. You look at June Magsaysay from number 18. He went up to as high as 13 in terms of ranking.
Is it part of the strategy of Una to use the three kings wherever you go? Personality versus personality. We're just talking about the president.
Well, Jing, the numbers will say that the three has very good endorsing powers. And to a certain extent, Vice President Binay has almost close to President Pinoy's endorsing power.
Right.
So it's part of the strategy, definitely. I think if you look at some of our candidates, really actually use the pictures of the other the three kings to endorse them. So it's part of the strategy. Even in some sorties, the three kings will go around with them and endorse the party, the group.
3 weeks to go. What are you looking at in terms of strategy in the campaign?
Part of the well, in the next 3 weeks, we will see massive advertising from everyone. No, I don't know with this latest decision
It's
by the
in
Supreme
limbo.
Court.
No one knows what to do. Come like
So
saying,
it's really
"Baka
now
balikan namin kayo."
it's really open guns now
Right,
to
right,
advertise.
right.
So
Yeah.
I think the last 3 weeks we will see massive advertising. I think
Okay.
that will be the primary strategy. But the group is still going around, talking to local government units, making sure that the message come across the constituency. I think it's a very dynamic scenario right now. So we're also adjusting what the message that we want to communicate to the people. But it's very, very clear that the platform should be ahead of what we want to say.
Team Pinoy, Mira.
Yeah, like what Sherwin said, no, I expect a lot of TV advertising, which is really the primary
Right.
medium,
Right.
radio,
Bang for the buck.
but also expect a lot of more black propaganda coming. Negative campaign is going to take place, and for the longest time it's been going around, but I see it shifting to a high gear over the next 3 weeks. That's unfortunate, and marami magsasabi, no? I mean, I can say, and I truthfully say that as far as Team Pinoy is concerned, we don't participate in it. We don't consciously, and we've consciously said hindi natin gagawin yan. Pero di mo rin masabi ibang mga individual candidates if they do it, no? At nangyayari yan kahit within the party.
Yeah,
within Una, within us, especially those yung mga nasa dulo. Ang nagbabakbakan dyan is yung from 9 to 14, at saka yung nagbabakbakan is yung 1 to 3. Kung as to sino yung gusto mauna. So all this flurry, it's really crossing party lines. And I think that when you have an elections where yung number 5 all the way up to number 14, the difference is 10%.
Right.
So, hindi tayo nakakita ng ganyan na gabuhok Gabuhok yung diferensya. Meron pa tayong margin of error dun sa survey. So, sa totoo lang, it's really anybody's ball game.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. Like when they say it's 9-3 now, sabi ko, could be 12-0.
Your opponent-
Or it could be 6-6.
Actually, in this case, your opponent can be your teammate.
Yeah.
That's right.
In this case,
That's right.
so
For
talagang
positions.
even sometimes yung three last entailing can be
That's
your
true.
teammates. No?
Thank you. Sherwin, thanks for joining me. Miro, thanks for joining
Thank
me.
you.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank my guests, Congressman Miro Kimbo of the Liberal Party, Team Pinoy, and Mayor Sherwin Gatchalian of UNA for being with us today. Join us again next Friday for another 360-degree discussion here on News Cafe. I'm Jing Magsaysay. Salamat po.
memorial, no, for many years already, if you look at the surveys, the problems of our country is pretty much the same over the years. No? Siguro na mag-iiba lang yan in a very small percentage. No?
Okay.
But number one will be really jobs. And job creation is really the biggest problem of this country. In terms of the party, I think the party, each candidate presented their own platform and how to generate jobs.
Yeah.
Of course, Una has been also consistent in saying that it's a constructive opposition, presenting alternative platforms to help the country. At the end of the day, everyone wants to benefit from good governance, and that's why we're also presenting other forms of solutions to move the country forward.
Specifically for jobs, how do you create jobs? What's the UNA formula for creating jobs?
There's no one single formula, Jing. It's really a multi-pronged.
Initially, when the campaign started, it was very difficult to dichotomize the two parties, principally because people mouth off the same things in an election. But there's a big difference. Biggest difference is the person behind it. And the person behind Team Pinoy is the name itself, the president. And it speaks about what the president's done over the last 3 years and what the president wants to do in the next 3 years. And I think we've been consistent on the positions and as well as the programs that the president feels strongly about. Those are controversial issues, but primarily now it's really on the peace process. It's investing in human capital, the Pantawid Pamilya program or the CCT program. You look at the peace and order as well as the peace process in Mindanao. I mean, essentially those are the things that we're really looking at. And there's also a difference, for us anyway. And we hope that the people see the difference, and we feel like the people are slowly seeing it on the basis of how the surveys are coming out.
Sherwin, how is UNA different?
Jing, time
sa bukod, hindi naman nakasalanan ng dito.
Media educators and journalists called to defend press freedom.
This corruption in media will introduce
Meron pa dalawang partido na may guest candidates. How is that possible? Ibig sabihin, walang diferensya between the two groups.
Sana huwag magkaroon ng dayaan itong ilusyon na ito. Para tuwid na tuwid yung daan. Una sa gawa, una sa unawa. Yan po ang una.
Sa darating na Mayo, muli na namang maharap sa sangandaan ang mga Pilipino.
You know, having two roles or two hats. But the campaign of the Team Pinoy is run by a great machinery with smart people. So
Really,
I'm just a
Really,
small segment in the entire gamut.
Sherwin,
Yeah, mahirap po talaga, no? Especially now that the local campaign started.
Yeah.
But the same po with Una, even as early as last year, yung organization prepared na at yung mga roles ng each of the individuals nakaayos na. So everything is on schedule naman as we speak.
Conrad De Quiros and Jairus Bondoc were here a few weeks ago. And we were talking about parties, and they were saying, pareho lang naman ang UNA at saka LP. People say the same things, food, jobs. What's the difference? Is there any difference, Miro?
Yeah,
Why is LP different from UNA?
I think Team Pinoy, well, I represent Team Pinoy, not
Yeah.
just LP,
Team
which
Pinoy.
is really an aggregation of 3 parties. Now, the observation is valid in a sense that
Ang tanong, pipiliin mo bang lumihis ng daan pabalik sa bulok na sistema at baligong kalakalan? Bilang liberal, iisa ang prinsipyong magtitimon sa inyong panunungkulan sa bandila. Bayan bago sarili.
Have you heard anything about platforms?
Pare-pareho pare-pareho lang sila ng platform. Sabihin, more jobs, more food on the table for the poor, health programs, pare-pareho Wala ka makitang difference yan dalawa.
Good evening. You're watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel. I'm Jing Magsaysay. Tonight we're joined by UNA Party spokesperson and Deputy Secretary General Mayor Sherwin Gatchalian and Liberal Party spokesperson Congressman Miro Quimo. Thanks.
Good evening,
You're
Jing.
both running, but you're both spokespersons. Di ba mahirap yun? Miro?
Mahirap, pero kailangan gawin. Alam namin simula't simula pa lang na it would involve